Hey, it's been a while. I'm Guzu, I am a writer, and I am writing my own Marvel Universe, with each phase taking place in a different decade. With Chapter 1 and 2, we covered the 60s and the 70s, exploring how those characters changed, and most importantly, how they changed the world around them. Now, it's time we move on to the 1980s as we begin to uncover the next chapter of, as named with the help of you guys, Marvel Vintage, Chapter 3, the 1980s. But before we dive right into our Marvel Universe 1980s, check this out. If you've seen my community page here on YouTube, then you know this video's been out for a couple of days on my Patreon. Yeah, I have a Patreon now. So if you want to support my work while getting early access to the videos in their definitive version with classic songs and a lot of extra content like Q&As and the first 3 pages of the script of Spider-Man film stock, then be sure to check out the first link on the description. Thank you. Right, so when entering the 80s, there's something I knew I had to establish from the very start. The atmosphere, that 1980s vibe. It is one of the most distinct eras in all of pop culture history, and I really wanted it to show in this universe. This is why, for this chapter, differing from the previous 2, I decided to open with Tales from the Marvel Universe, our signature anthology series that explores all 4 corners of our Marvel Universe, which is a great way to show how the world changed since we last saw it. Episode 1 is Department of Damage Control, a comedy story following the DODC staff as they clean up a number of messes left by superheroes all around New York City. It works like an episode from The Office, a kind of documentary following the daily lives of those workers. From a bigger picture point of view, it is our chance to see how things changed since Steve Rogers became the President of the United States, with the DODC itself being a project created by Captain America's government. More on that later. Here, my goal is to show how crazy this world has gotten, mainly through the lens of the average Joe, or in this case, the damage control staff. Because when you work for the DODC, your day can begin cleaning up a mess made by the wrecking crew, and then end up reconstructing a building destroyed by Think Fang Foom. Oh, and of course, we'll get to see a lot of familiar faces too, even though some of them have really changed. Which brings us to episode 2, Complicated Relationships, which is, of course, our symbiote Spider-Man story. You can't talk about 80s Marvel without getting into Black Suit Spider-Man, can you? Although, technically, this story is not about Spidey. This episode follows the entire alien costume saga from being discovered in outer space by John Jameson to finding Spider-Man, then being rejected and then embraced by Eddie Brock. Yeah, it's a long way. But the thing is, this story is actually told by the eyes of the symbiote. I want to humanize it, show how it felt to be taken away from space, just to be rejected and then repurposed with hatred. Which means, yeah, as we pick up to the present day, Spidey already got rid of the symbiote. But it doesn't mean he's not wearing the black suit. Again, more on that later. Episode 3 is titled Nick and Frank, and I guess it is the most 80s thing in here. It is a Cold War espionage story following Nick Fury, agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., as he tracks down a Soviet secret society that has been providing arms to New York City organized crime. Also following this conspiracy is Frank Castle, the Punisher, and the two of them end up joining forces. Imagine Atomic Blonde plus Cobra, but above anything else, imagine an adaptation of Punisher's beat-em-up arcade game. That's about it. Now, a total pivot for episode 4, which is Stormbreaker. After decades trapped in Midgard, embracing the superhero career as an Avenger, Thor Odinson comes home to Asgard, only to find out he's been replaced. Meet the bearer of the Stormbreaker, the new god of thunder, Beta Ray Bill. This story is about the both of them, about having to fill the shoes of a literal god, as well as about how Thor's time in Midgard changed him when it comes to dealing with change itself. When you're an immortal god, 40 years goes like a blink of an eye. But after being trapped on Earth for 4 decades, living among humanity, Thor really passes to experience time differently. Moving to episode 5, we have Background Check. After years as an X-Men, Wolverine leaves America on a journey to find himself. Not in a self-help type of trip, but in a man with no memories of his past type of trip. Which is what leads him to his home country, Canada, where he tries to dig in military archives to find what happened to him during World War II, and why he left to fight alongside Captain America and the Howling Commando. But as it turns out, usually, the military doesn't like the idea of a man invading their bases and digging through secret files. So, they send their own superhero task force to get Logan, which is, of course, the Alpha Flight. Now to our last episode. We have Penance. which is our homage to 80s horror and slasher films. We follow a young man in his 20s as he drives around the country running from something terrifying, constantly looking behind his shoulder. He sleeps at motels, he eats at diners, he moves from one state to another, but nothing seems to work. It's like when night comes, he knows the demon will be there. And it will. It is inspired by films like Duel, The Hitcher, and Death Proof, which are all stories about psychopaths behind the wheel chasing our protagonists. But we have a little twist. The young man we've been following is actually a convicted criminal, a psychopath himself, responsible for the death of 4 girls. And the demon, well, it is vengeance itself. The man is being chased by the Ghost Rider, and he knows there is no escape. Okay, the stage is set. As we wrap up this volume of tales, we move to our first 1980s epic, as I present to you Black Panther, Last Hunt. As the Avengers become America's official poster boys, T'Chaka, the Black Panther, leaves the team for good. Their world is in good hands, isn't it? Now, T'Chaka can finally return home to Wakanda to focus solely on his duty as a king. But that's not exactly what his people expect from him anymore. As we saw in the last chapters, this version of Black Panther joined forces with Captain America and the outside world for the first time in the 1950s and has, since then, worked beside other superheroes all over the world as the Avengers became superstars. Even at home, the Black Panther got more and more idealized as the American superhero archetype became the world's favorite topic. The people of Wakanda want T'Chaka to be more than a king, they want him to be Wakanda's postcard superhero. But as it happens, time comes even for the best of us, and T'Chaka is getting old. The mythical heart-shaped herb powers are starting to fade away and the Black Panther is getting weaker, but he doesn't care. He wants to be a king, but more than that, he wants to be a present father. In this story, we meet for the first time in this universe the Prince of Wakanda, T'Challa, the son of T'Chaka. But meanwhile, as we travel to a remote decayed mansion in Russia, we meet Sergei Kravenov. The thing is, Kraven is dying. Death doesn't faze him though, as long as he can prove himself to be the world's greatest apex predator, as long as he can get his biggest prize, the head of a king. So Kraven challenges the Panther, the world's greatest hunter, versus Wakanda's superhero, and T'Chaka accepts the challenge, not for himself, but for his people. Yeah, it is Kraven's last hunt, but completely changed and adapted to fit the world of the Black Panther. Though I think I should say that this comic is not our story's biggest inspiration. Actually, this story is a mythical superhero epic version of Rocky IV, the story of a legendary hero who just wants to retire and live a simple life, being pulled back to the fight not only by his enemy, but by his own people. This is a story about pride, about not letting everybody else down, about fighting wars you know you ain't winning, because you can't afford to back down. This is the story of the death of a king. By the end, T'Chaka is dead, but long live Wakanda, and long live the Black Panther. All hail the new king, T'Challa, son of T'Chaka, the new Black Panther. Moving back to New York, we catch up with Peter Parker as we get to our next story, Spider-Man, Wedding Day. Since Spider-Man got rid of the symbiote, life has been good. Sporting a club version of his black suit and finally reaching his 30s, Peter Parker and Mary Jane are ready to get married. MJ herself has found great success as a TV actress, while Peter has just published Webs, a photo book gathering every Spidey picture he took since he was 15, which means their financial situation has never been better. Which leads Peter to consider leaving the Daily Bugle to pursue a career as a high school science teacher, a plan Mary Jane really supports. But obviously, life can't really stay that good, can it? Especially when you're the Amazing Spider-Man. As Peter and Mary Jane worry about their wedding preparations, Otto Octavius escapes prison driven by vengeance, but there's something different now. Now, he knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Following his escape, Dr. Octopus gathers 5 of the most fearsome enemies Spidey has ever fought: Electro, Sandman, Mysterio, the Vulture, and the Hobgoblin. With Doc Ock as their leader, they call themselves the Sinister Six, and they won't let the Spider get away this time. What makes this story so unique is that it takes place during a single day, which is, of course, Peter and Mary Jane's wedding day. So it is a classic Spider-Man situation, as he has to deal with a giant threat as the single most important moment of his life approaches. Will he be able to get to his own wedding in time? Or, as a matter of fact, will he be alive by the time night comes? After an epic fight in the heart of New York City, Spider-Man is victorious, of course, sending the Sinister Six to a new prison for superhumans, the Raft. Obviously, he would always worry about what would happen if Dr. Octopus revealed his identity to other villains, but now there's something a little more important. As Peter and MJ finally get married, they realize their biggest challenge has yet to come, because, as it turns out, Mary Jane is pregnant. Moving on, we have this chapter season of X-Men, with this time, the class of 85. First, let's establish our status quo. As per usual, our story follows two storylines, which are bound to tangle with each other at different occasions. The first is, of course, the X-Men team. This time around, in the year of 1985, we have Cyclops, Jean Grey, Storm, Nightcrawler, Wolverine, Banshee, and Beast. Although he's not an active member of the team, since Steve Rogers became the president, Hank McCoy became the Secretary of Mutant Affairs, which sparks a great controversy around the public, since mutant kind was really gaining space and, most importantly, a voice in this new government. While the other storyline follows a different cast of characters, as we meet this generation's new mutants: Kitty Pryde, or Shadowcat, Iliana Rasputin, or Magic, Roberto da Costa, or Sunspot, Glob Herman, Jubilee, Danielle Moonstar, and Douglas Ramsey, or Cypher. Imagine a drama or coming-of-age story like Freaks and Geeks, with two separate cast of characters going through completely different journeys. The New Mutants are the lens through which we see the 1980s youth, romance, parties, shopping malls, and occasional demon bears, though our focus is to show how different this group of characters is from the class of 65. After 20 years, the world is a completely different place, and so is the mutant kind's fight for a world that respects them. Meanwhile, Jean Grey is struck with a telepathic cry for help, a mental SOS. The thing is, it is not human, nor mutant, nor it came from Earth. There is something beyond the stars, and that something needs the X-Men. This story embraces the cosmic side of the 1980s X-Men comics, as we follow the team traveling through outer space to answer the call of Princess Lilandra, the leader of the Shi'ar Empire, or what is left of it, because something or someone destroyed their planet, and Lilandra thinks Jean Grey is the only one who can stop this force of nature by becoming one herself, because after this journey through the cosmos, Jean Grey will return home forever changed. This is, if there is a home to get back to, because that thing, that someone, that force of nature, it is coming to Earth. The X-Men won't be able to stop him, but maybe the Phoenix will. Coming right up, we have the Avengers, Fix the World. 5 years have passed since Steve Rogers was first elected as the President of the United States. Now, he was just re-elected. It certainly is a crazier world now as the President attends UN meetings in red and blue spandex, but a safer world nonetheless. US military activity just reached an all-time low as the Avengers became America's #1 defense operation. Captain America, Iron Man, the Hulk, the Wasp, Hercules, Wonder Man, the Scarlet Witch, Ms. Marvel, Falcon, and, in a way, Beast, while Hank Pym, no longer the Ant-Man, works as their guy in the chair, providing their gadgets and their general tech. What we used to consider mundane is nothing but a distant memory by now. Super criminals with extraordinary powers in colorful costumes appears on a day-to-day basis. While Steve Rogers balances his responsibilities as the president, Captain America continues to lead the Avengers as we see them fight enemies like AIM, the Serpent Society, the Leader, and many more. But everything changes when a new organization appears, the Red Skulls, a neo-Nazi faction following the image of the late World War II villain, organizing terrorist attacks all over the country. At first glance, they seem like crazy people with military training. But there's something else. What makes them so powerful is the fact that they carry a weaponry that seems familiar to Captain America. They use the technology Baron Zemo created in the 1940s, a technology that, to this date, Captain America thought was destroyed. After shutting down the Red Skulls, the Avengers begin an investigation to know where they got their guns. when they find out that it was never destroyed but actually taken by the CIA after the end of the war to be used as American military weaponry, along with all of Zemo's research. And now it wasn't stolen by the Red Skulls, but actually arranged by a politician inside the White House. One of the biggest scandals the world has ever seen, and Captain America is the one to blame. How could he let this happen? Was it all happening under his nose? Maybe he was just busy, playing superhero. Ashamed and frustrated, Captain America steps down as the leader of the Avengers to focus only on his duty as the president. Meanwhile, the rest of the team work on finding out where else that weaponry could have been sent. When Hank Pym gets an idea. Zemo was a monster, a madman of course, but his inventions and researches could be put to better use, for the good of mankind of course. So Hank takes all of the machinery to his lab, where he feeds all of Zemo's research to his little AI assistant, Ultron. Now, a little editor's note. In this series part 1, the 60s, I've talked about this universe's first story, Captain America and the Howling Commandos. This one in particular, taking place in the 1940s. The story's first act is actually available for you to watch on my other channel, Chronica. There, we dive a little deeper in Zemo's research, which began with a series of fever dreams about a cosmic horror entity, the World Eater. Now, going back to the future, of the 80s. You know the story. The AI gets more consciousness than expected, turns out to be a kind of psychopath, and well, now Ultron wants to destroy humanity. Well, actually, no. Our version of Ultron is a little different. Programmed with the morality of Hank Pym, Ultron's objective is, above anything else, to protect humanity. It's the story of an AI that looks into the eye of the abyss, an AI that became terrified by cosmic horror, the image of an eldritch god that was bound to come to humanity. But instead of madness, what he gets is a sense of super protection, a sense that humanity's new status quo, with ants playing as gods, is what shines the light in the universe, a lighthouse in a sea of monsters. His objective is to harness humanity, to create a new world where everything is under his control, or in his perception, his protection. Meta-humans must be vanquished for humanity to go back to its anthill status quo, and he will get it done. The Avengers try to stop him, but it's too late. With the technology of Hydra, Hank Pym, and Tony Stark all put together, Ultron is unstoppable. He's going to protect humanity at all costs, and no one will get in his way. One month after their mission in space, the X-Men comes back home, only to find out that there is none. No, the World Eater hasn't arrived yet, but nonetheless, New York is now completely changed. Cause for Chapter 3's climax, we have Marvel Vintage, the Rage of Ultron. The Big Apple just went completely dystopian. Ultron's machinery covered the city in its tendrils as new modified versions of the Sentinels patrol the streets in search of superpowered people. It's like Days of Future Past meets 1984, Metropolis, Terminator, and Escape from New York. After battling their way into the city, the X-Men gets rescued by the Resistance, a team formed by all the New York-based superheroes that left. Iron Man, the Hulk, Beast, Magic, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Spider-Man, Mr. Fantastic, the Invisible Woman, The Thing, and finally, the enemy's creator, Hank Pym. Their base is the Baxter Building, the only place in the city that Ultron hasn't been able to breach yet. And they're running out of time, cause if Ultron gets access to the Fantastic Four stack, he'd be able to go much further than just New York. One might think that with the X-Men, Ultron's reign is about to end, but ever since he invaded AIM's base, Ultron incorporated the Super Adaptoid technology into his system, becoming practically immune to the powers of all superheroes. But there is a loophole. Right there. The X-Men knows of someone that could be able to stop Ultron, someone his super adapted powers were not designed to deal with, because that someone is not a superhero. Magneto. But where is he? Is he alive? Well, Hank Pym might know. The thing is, as I said, Ultron's been programmed with Hank's morality code, which means there is something he can't override. Ultron just can't kill. Meaning there must be a place where Ultron is keeping his prisoners. So this is their plan, to get into the new raft, which turns out to be a miniature prison, shrunk down with Pym particles inside an aquarium, and set everyone free. A big battle commences. Captain America, Nick Fury, and Wolverine, the three of them, fighting side by side once again like they did in World War II, while Magneto takes Ultron apart for Phoenix and the Human Torch to join their fires on a supernova to melt the enemy down, thus finally ending the Age of Ultron. By the end, Steve Rogers announces to the world he's leaving the Avengers, naming Sam Wilson, the Falcon, as their new leader. With time, New York City starts to recover, but there is something different now. Maybe Ultron was right. Maybe we did shine a light brighter than we could afford. Maybe we stretched the boundaries of space and he hurt. That night, the entire world looked at the skies to gaze upon the stars. But this time, the stars, well, they looked back. Was he coming? No, he was already here. Well, that's it for the 1980s. I know, it took me a long time, but it's here now. So, what did you think? Please comment below what stories you liked the most, what ideas you, hated or something like that, and please support me by liking, hyping, and sharing the video. And if you really want to support me, you can check out my Patreon, the first link in the description. Thank you. As always, obrigado e tchau tchau.